The wise, by silence, ascend to the source, for only in stillness may the truth be heard. Hermeticum Codex. What if the people vanishing from your life aren't broken, but the most awake of all? They're not leaving in anger, they're slipping out silently, as if stepping through a hidden doorway only they can see. Society calls it isolation, but ancient wisdom calls it initiation, the retreat before transformation. Stay with me, because once you see why the awakened are disappearing, you'll never look at silence the same way again. You've probably noticed it, people you once saw everywhere are just gone. Not with a bang, not in flames of anger, but quietly, as if they slipped through a hidden doorway. They leave jobs, social media, and even old friendships without posting farewell notes. This silent exodus isn't rebellion, it's a return. And the real question is, what are they returning to? For the awakened, noise becomes unbearable. Endless scrolling, shallow conversations, even the rhythm of career ladders feels like chasing echoes in an empty hall. They step back, not to escape life, but to feel it in a purer way. Imagine walking out of a crowded concert into the night air. Suddenly, you can breathe again. Doesn't it make you wonder how much of your own energy is drained by constant noise? Hermetic wisdom described this retreat centuries ago, the soul stepping away from the carnival of appearances to realign with higher law. The ancients called it the realm of illusion, the play of shadows mistaken for substance. When silence arrives, it isn't weakness, it's mastery choosing stillness over distraction. And here's a secret, the strongest decision is often the quietest one. Can you feel how silence sometimes says more than words? This isn't some rare phenomenon, it's happening all around. Look closer, and you'll see the ones who vanish don't carry bitterness. They don't announce crusades, they simply turn inward. Like seeds beneath the soil, their disappearance is only the first step of growth. And if the seed resists burial, how could it ever sprout into something greater? Pause for a moment. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and feel how even now silence has a texture. Hold it for 4 seconds, release slowly, and notice the shift. That simple withdrawal is the same principle at play on a larger scale. Silence is not emptiness, it's a reservoir. And when you realize that, you see why solitude feels like oxygen to the awakened. What's the cost of ignoring that call? The mid-roll secret almost no one reveals is this: stepping away isn't about abandoning the world, it's about refusing to betray your own consciousness. The ancients knew this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Withdrawal is alignment, not avoidance. But once you see through illusions, what happens when you look back at society itself? Society isn't built on truth, it's built on shared dreams. Every custom, every law, every normal, is nothing more than a script people agree to perform together. That doesn't make it evil, it makes it a stage. But the moment someone awakens, they see the play from backstage, where the costumes hang and the lights are fake. And once you've seen the wires, can you really pretend not to? Think of it. We agree money has value because everyone acts like it does. We agree status means something because others bow to it. Strip away the agreement, and both vanish like smoke. The Hermetic sages warned of this, mistaking shadows for substance. And if you've ever felt like a stranger at your own birthday party, smiling while knowing none of it is real, you've already tasted this truth. Doesn't that explain why some quietly walk away? The awakened become what I call glitches in the matrix. They stop playing the roles expected of them, and suddenly, others don't know how to respond. A worker who won't climb the ladder. A friend who won't gossip. A partner who sees through manipulation. Their very presence disrupts the program. And here's the paradox: the freer you are, the more you reveal how asleep others remain. Have you ever felt the sting of being the odd one out? Thoth described this danger long ago: consciousness trapped in matter, forgetting the higher principles that govern reality. To stay unconscious is to obey the script. To awaken is to burn the script and improvise. Carl Jung echoed the same insight: sometimes withdrawal is necessary just to stop living inside projections. Subscribe now if you want more of these rare connections between ancient law and modern thought, because they'll keep unfolding as we go. Isn't it wild how millennia-old wisdom lines up with psychology today? But here's the cost: once you see through the illusion, participation feels like betrayal. To keep playing the role means dimming your own light. That's why the awakened hesitate before every handshake, every small talk, every performance. It feels false. They can sense the weight of collective hypnosis, yet they're asked to join in. Imagine living in a theater where everyone believes the play is real, while you're the only one aware of the script. Could you endure that every day? The step most people never talk about is this: once you awaken, you can't unknow. There's no reverse gear. And that's where the curse begins, the loneliness of seeing too much. But before we dive into that shadow, we need to face what it really feels like to stand awake among those still dreaming. Awakening sounds like freedom, but here's the hidden cost: loneliness. The more awake someone becomes, the harder it is to stay in crowds. Conversations feel hollow, like playing chess with pieces glued to the board. Every smile feels rehearsed, every phrase scripted. And you start asking yourself, why pretend not to see what's right in front of you? It's like walking into a party where the music stopped hours ago, yet everyone's still dancing as if it's playing. You want to join, but your ears won't lie to you. That's why awakened people often go silent mid-conversation. They can't fake resonance. Their energy refuses to drop to the old frequency. Have you ever bitten your tongue just to keep the peace, while inside you felt you were betraying yourself? The psyche eventually refuses compromise. It starts revolting every time you dim your light to fit in. That's why many people burn out or fall ill before realizing withdrawal isn't selfish, it's survival. In Hermetic practice, this moment is sacred. The adept chooses to guard the flame of inner gnosis. Protecting that flame means saying no, even if it costs belonging. Would you risk losing the crowd to keep your own fire alive? Here's something practical. Next time you feel drained after a gathering, notice which part of you had to shrink to be there. Write it down. Journaling isn't just therapy, it's data on where your soul resists compromise. Books like The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer or The Kybalion can guide you deeper. Save this video so you can revisit that practice whenever you need it. Your future self will thank you. Doesn't that sound like real self-respect? What most people miss is that silence itself is a choice of vibration. It's not running away, it's refusing to harmonize with noise. That's why some awakened individuals seem aloof. They're not arrogant, they're conserving their frequency. Like tuning a guitar, you can't stay in key if you keep matching others who are out of tune. And the question becomes, how long can you keep tuning yourself back before the string snaps? But here's the teaser. When you start protecting your own light, something unexpected happens. You also start seeing shadows more clearly, both yours and the world's. And that's where the burden deepens, because once you integrate your shadow, the collective shadow becomes impossible to ignore. Once you've faced your own shadow, you start noticing the shadows others refuse to see. It's like turning on a flashlight in a dark room. You can't unsee the dust floating in the air. Wars, politics, even petty arguments stop looking like noble causes and reveal themselves as projections of fear. The awakened can't pick a side anymore because both sides are mirrors. Have you felt that weight, the burden of seeing too much? When society demands you choose teams, you stand apart. The arguments sound hollow because you know they're two masks of the same unresolved wound. That's why awakened people frustrate others. They won't chant, won't fight, won't demonize. They can't, because their inner work has shown them the enemy is within. And isn't it true that once you've seen your own darkness, it's harder to condemn someone else's? This is what Hermetic law calls the principle of polarity. Every force carries its opposite. Light casts shadow, heat creates cold, love triggers fear. To the unconscious, these look like battles. To the adept, they're twins of the same mother. Rising above duality is the path, but try explaining that at a family dinner. Have you noticed how uncomfortable people get when you refuse to hate who they hate? Here's a simple practice. Next time you feel pulled into an argument, pause. Place one hand on your chest, breathe slowly, and visualize the tension as smoke leaving your body. 10 seconds, that's all. This isn't weakness, it's mastery. Because choosing not to join the mob requires more strength than shouting with it. And if more people paused, don't you think the world would look less like a battlefield? But here's the real drain. Carrying this awareness feels heavy. You see projections everywhere, on screens, in crowds, even in loved ones. And you can't switch it off. The awakened become guardians of balance, but balance is exhausting to maintain alone. That's why many feel compelled to step back, to conserve energy for higher creation. Doesn't it make sense why solitude becomes not just appealing but necessary? And here's the thread we'll pull next. Seeing shadows outside forces you to notice how much energy it costs to remain awake inside an unconscious environment. The burden isn't just spiritual, it's psychological, physical, and deeply personal. Staying awake in a sleeping world takes more strength than most realize. It's not just mental, it's physical. Every conversation requires filtering projections. Every room demands you hold your frequency against the pull of drama. That constant resistance is like running with weights on your shoulders. How long could anyone sprint with that kind of load? Think of it this way. Imagine holding a candle in a windstorm. You can guard it for a while, but eventually your arms ache, your focus wavers, and the flame flickers. That's the daily reality of the awakened in unconscious environments. Their inner flame requires constant protection, and fatigue is the inevitable price. Haven't you felt drained after simply being in places where you didn't belong? Psychologists call this emotional labor, but Hermetic wisdom named it centuries ago. Energy follows vibration. To stay in low vibration spaces means spending all your fuel just resisting. Depression, anxiety, even illness often follow, not because something's wrong with you, but because your energy is being siphoned. Save this video so you can return when you need the reminder. You're not broken, you're simply tired of holding the flame. Doesn't that shift how you see your own exhaustion? Here's a practical example. Have you ever left a family gathering or office meeting and felt you needed 3 days to recover? That's not weakness, it's the cost of standing in fields of unprocessed projection. The cure isn't more caffeine or willpower, it's strategic withdrawal. Even 20 minutes of solitude can reset your system. Would you be willing to give yourself that space, instead of forcing yourself to endure? That's why many awakened individuals disappear for stretches of time. They're not rejecting others, they're preserving themselves. The silence isn't escape, it's energy conservation. Like a phone constantly on low battery, recharging means unplugging from the noise. And once you understand that, you stop judging withdrawal as weakness. What if solitude was actually the smartest energy management strategy of all? And that brings us to the archetype most people misunderstand, the hermit. Society calls it antisocial, but spiritually it's preparation. Withdrawal isn't the end of the path, it's the beginning of transformation. When people hear hermit, they picture someone running from the world, hiding in caves. But the true hermit archetype isn't about escape, it's about gestation. Just like seeds need darkness before sprouting, the awakened need silence before revealing wisdom. Solitude is the womb of transformation. Doesn't it flip the story when you see isolation as preparation, not rejection? In every tradition, the hermit reappears. In tarot, he holds a lantern, symbolizing wisdom carried into the dark. In Hermetic texts, Thoth is the scribe, retreating to record truths away from the crowd. Jung later echoed it, individuation happens in solitude, not in noise. And today, when you feel guilty for withdrawing, remember, you're walking the same archetypal path walked for millennia. Haven't you noticed history repeats in symbols? The beauty of the hermit phase is what it protects, authenticity. Away from external influence, the soul starts to hear its own frequency. No likes, no applause, no roles to perform. Just the raw voice of truth. That's why silence feels unbearable at first, it strips away every costume. But in that nakedness, something real is born. Have you ever sat alone long enough to hear yourself clearly? Practical tip, try a micro-retreat. One afternoon, no phone, no talking, just a notebook, water, and your breath. Observe how the mind panics, then settles. This is individuation in real time. You don't need mountains to find silence, you need intention. If this resonates, hit subscribe and keep walking with me, because more of these hidden archetypes will unfold in coming chapters. Wouldn't it be powerful to reclaim silence as a tool, not a punishment? Another layer, the hermit doesn't withdraw forever. He prepares to return. That lantern is not for himself but for others. The scribe doesn't keep the records locked away, he writes for future generations. Your solitude is not wasted, it's an investment. When you emerge, you'll carry something the world desperately needs. Doesn't it shift the weight of being alone into a privilege? And here's where the spiral continues. Withdrawal isn't an ending but a metamorphosis. It's the stage before transformation, the pause before emergence. Next, we'll explore how disappearance is not collapse at all, but the alchemy of becoming something greater. When someone disappears, most assume they've failed, burned out, or lost their way. But in truth, withdrawal often marks the most powerful phase of transformation. Like the caterpillar dissolving in its cocoon, the awakened step back to dissolve false identities. The silence isn't collapse, it's alchemy at work. Doesn't it change everything when absence is seen as preparation, not defeat? In careers, this looks like quitting high-paying jobs that no longer resonate. In relationships, it's stepping away from bonds that demand masks. In society, it's refusing to perform roles written by others. From the outside, it seems like loss, from the inside, it feels like liberation. Have you ever noticed how endings often disguise themselves as beginnings? Hermetic teaching called this phase retreat into the vessel. The adept endures dissolution, like metal in fire, until the impurities burn away. It's uncomfortable, even terrifying, but necessary. The promise isn't comfort, it's transmutation. That's why solitude feels so intense. You're melting down old forms to emerge as something new. Doesn't it remind you that real gold is forged under heat, not ease? A practice: when you feel your life falling apart, try reframing it as dissolution. Close your eyes, breathe, and picture your old identity melting like wax. Whisper to yourself, this is not death, it's refinement. This tiny ritual reframes chaos into alchemy. Save this idea somewhere you can revisit it, because the moment will come when you'll need it. Wouldn't that perspective soften the fear of endings? And when the withdrawal is complete, the return is inevitable, but never the same. Those who vanish don't come back to resume old roles. They come back as something transformed: creators, healers, guides. Their silence carried the seed of new consciousness. And when they reappear, they do so at the margins, not the mainstream. Doesn't that sound like the real hero's journey? That leads us directly into the final stage, returning with gifts. Because the Hermetic spiral doesn't end with solitude, it ends with illumination shared. Let's see what the awakened bring back when they re-emerge. When awakened individuals return, they're not who they were before. They come back like travelers from another land, carrying treasures invisible to the ordinary eye. Their silence has ripened into insight, their solitude into strength. They reappear as artists, healers, teachers, shaping new spaces where consciousness can breathe. Doesn't it feel like their absence was never loss, but investment? This is the hero's journey in its purest form. Step away, transform, then return bearing gifts for the tribe. They don't rejoin unconscious society, they create conscious enclaves at its edges. A yoga teacher sharing presence, a writer offering wisdom, a leader refusing manipulation. Each embodies the principle, as above, so below, translating inner mastery into outer service. Have you seen how one awakened person can shift the energy of an entire room? Hermetic wisdom described this moment as the adept ascending the spiral. The climb isn't linear, it circles upward, each round carrying deeper resonance. That's why their return feels magnetic. They've touched something eternal and bring it back. People sense it, even if they can't explain it. And isn't that why certain voices, certain presences, feel like they're speaking directly to your soul? Here's a practical thought: your own silence may already be preparing gifts. Journals filling with insights, art left unfinished, dreams waiting for courage. Don't underestimate those seeds. Share them when they're ready. And if this journey resonates, hit the bell so you don't miss the next step. We'll keep exploring together. Wouldn't it be tragic to hide wisdom the world is secretly waiting for? But remember, gifts aren't always dramatic. Sometimes it's the way you listen differently now, or the calm you bring into chaos. Sometimes it's the refusal to spread fear, or the courage to speak truth gently. These subtle gifts ripple further than you'll ever know. Haven't you noticed how even a single presence can alter the whole atmosphere? And now, we've reached the end of the spiral in this teaching, but it's also the beginning. Because the real invitation isn't to admire the awakened from afar, but to realize the same cycle lives in you. Which brings us to the final step, opening this entire journey with a hook that grips the soul. So now you see, the disappearance of the awakened isn't weakness, it's power. They step back not to escape, but to transform. And when they return, they bring gifts that ripple across families, communities, even generations. The question is, will you honor your own call to withdraw when the noise becomes too heavy, or will you keep pretending the play is real? If something stirred in you today, act on it. Give yourself an hour of silence, or even 10 minutes of honest breathing, and notice what awakens within. Share your thoughts below, one word is enough. And if this spoke to you, subscribe, turn on the bell, like, and share this message so others can find their way back to themselves too. This is just the beginning. The Hermetic path is full of hidden laws, forgotten truths, and practices that shift the way you see reality. On the end screen, you'll find the next video, an invitation to step deeper into the mysteries. Don't stop here. Keep climbing the spiral.